Hi, Melody. She's still having problems to log in.
Okay, I will have to take care of it in a second. Since you're starting us out, it's okay for now. Thank you.
Okay.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to District 8's virtual roundtable discussion, where we will be discussing promoting anti-hate and discrimination awareness. Thank you for joining us. If the Spanish interpreter can just help us, thank you.
Hola, buenas noches. Bienvenidos a todos y gracias por estar aquí en esta mesa redonda virtual del Distrito 8 para promover lo que es el antiodio y la conciencia de la discriminación. Gracias.
This evening, we will be offering 4 different languages in which that you can hear the event in. We'll have Spanish, Korean, Mandarin, and Cantonese. If you would like to hear this webinar in either of those languages, you'll see an interpretation button pop up on your screen and choose the desired language. If you would like to hear this event in English, you don't have to click any of these options.
Buenas noches, estamos ofreciendo traducción simultánea en vivo para este evento y sí, estamos ofreciendo interpretación en español, coreano, mandarín y cantonés. Y si necesita interpretación en alguno de estos idiomas, por favor, haga clic en el botón en la barra de abajo y ahí escoja el idioma que usted desea. Y en breve vamos a estar pues activando esta función para que puedan accesar su idioma deseado en el cual quieren pues escuchar esta mesa redonda virtual. Gracias.
Thank you. If our Korean interpreter can just help us.
네, 안녕하세요. 지금부터 저희가 라이브 이벤트를 진행하겠습니다. 저희가 한국어 통역을 제공하고 있으니까요. 한국어 통역이 필요하신 분은 아래 지구 버튼을 누르셔서 통역을 이용해 주시기 바랍니다. 감사합니다.
Thank you. If our Mandarin interpreter can just help us.
大家好，我是那个国语的翻译。如果你是需要国语的翻译呢，你等一下你会在中间呢有一个地球，你可以按进去呢去国语翻译的地方，你到那里你可以会有同步翻译的翻译人员会帮助你，谢謝。
Thank you. And our Cantonese interpreter.
大家好，如果大家需要廣東話翻譯嘅話咧，一陣間我哋會有個地球個喺我哋個電腦嗰度咧會有出現嘅，咁你撳入去咧就可以選擇你想要嘅語言，咁我哋會有同聲翻譯嘅，唔該晒 ，Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now you will see the option pop up on your screen and you can choose the desired language. We wanted to inform you that tonight we have a couple functions that you are able to use during our discussion. We have the chat function. You're more free to discuss in there and add any comments that you would like to include. In our Q&A section, you'll be able to ask any questions, which we'll be answering at the end of the webinar. And additionally, if you're having any issues with your audio or video, please feel free to choose the option of raise hand, and we'll be able to help you. This evening, I would like to introduce Senator John Brooks's district office. With us tonight, we have Lucia Martinez. She's the Director of Constituent Services, Joe Agavino, Director of Communications, myself, Melody Yanza, External Relations Associate, and we also have Mason Leonard that is helping us out. And additionally, we'd like to introduce our community outreach group that help make these events possible. Tonight, we have Jessica E. Fernandez. She's a Census Partnership Specialist in Community Engagement. We have Daphne Irizarry. She's the president of LILTA, Long Island Latino Teachers Association. And we have Maria Jordan Awalam. She's a Freeport District Board trustee. Thank you so much for joining us. With us tonight, we are also very honored and privileged to have the following panelists with us. We have Farrah Mozawalla. She's the Executive Director of Nassau County Asian American Affairs. We have Dr. Rhee. She is the professor at the College of Education, Information, and Technology at the LIU Post. We have Officer Thomas Joy. He is an officer for the Suffolk County Police Department and also a member of the Suffolk County Asian Advisory Board. We also have Sabrina Guo. She is the founder of LILAC, Long Island Laboring Against COVID-19, and also the founder of Girl Pride International. Additionally, we have Dr. Gordon Zhang. He is the president and founder of Long Island Chinese American Association and board director for the Asian American Coalition of Education. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. We are very appreciative for your time that you have taken out to be part of this discussion. At this moment, I would like to introduce Senator John E. Brooks. Thank you so much, Senator, for making this webinar and this platform possible. We would like to hear from you some opening remarks. Thank you.
All right, we got the microphone on now. Thank you, Melanie, and thank you everyone who's with us tonight. I think, you know, we're very blessed, all of us. We live in probably the most diverse country in the world. Our ancestors came to this country many different ways and from many different places. As Neil Diamond once said, on the ships and boats and planes, they're coming to America. My ancestors actually came to America before there was a United States of America. They came in the 1600s. But everybody came here for the opportunity to find a better place to live, to grow, to prosper. You know, we had many waves of immigration that came in from different countries at a time. And unfortunately, sometimes those waves were faced with people that made it difficult for them to come to our country. And as we know right now, we're seeing some actions that we can't be proud of, the behavior and the discrimination that have been shown to certain people that have come here. Hate is an emotion that we have that is useless. It serves no purpose. For anyone to have the ability to hate someone because of where they came from, the color of their skin, their religious beliefs, it serves no purpose. We have always been seen as the world's melting pot. People came from everywhere. And we benefit from the great contributions and heritage that comes from each of the countries that we came from that make us unique in all the world. What we're seeing right now in terms of our friends from the Asian community is totally uncalled for. Our Asian friends contributed to this nation greatly in so many ways. And during the pandemic, many of them were involved in the medical care areas and research areas and scientific studies. And they were part of the positive efforts we were making to fight this horrific pandemic. Tonight we're going to talk about situations that do exist and the way some people behave. But remember, that's not who America is. America is all of the people that come forward to work together, to present different items, different ideas that make this country as successful as it is. The hatred we're seeing right now is sickening. There's no justification for it. But there are those people that, for no good reason, object to somebody else being here just because of where they came from. So let's realize that some people think very smallly sometimes, and they looked at other people and they're jealous of what they perceive that they have. All of us, all of our families, whenever we emigrated here, we came because we saw an opportunity. That opportunity is still there. And tonight, what we're going to be doing through these discussions is an opportunity to end some of that hate, to give you information that you can use in talking with others to dispel the untruths that are spoken about people from different areas of the world. So I'm sorry in some ways that we have to do this tonight, but I think we've all seen in recent weeks and in a broader look at our history, there has long been discrimination against people for various reasons that shouldn't exist. So I hope tonight is the opening of a door of understanding. We have a very diverse group of people. I think one of the unique things we do with these seminars is we have interpreters from multiple languages that remind us that we are a country of people from all over the world. And while we don't all happen to speak the same language at certain times, we have the same beliefs. We believe in right and freedom for everyone, to live in peace, to have opportunity to grow and economically and educationally, and the opportunity to be a part of something that really strives to serve all the people in this great country. So I look forward to tonight's discussion. The fact that you're on the line with us tonight shows that you understand that hatred has no value, and collectively we have to get everybody to come together and be that one great nation, that city on the hill that everybody can look to for opportunity and assistance and hope. So I look forward to my discussion. And the driver told me to shut up, so I'll stop talking now and get the show on the road. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Senator Brooks. At this moment, I would like to kick it off to Lucia, and she will be taking us through the program. Thank you so much for being with us tonight.
Thank you, Melody, and thank you, Senator Brooks. Everyone, welcome. It is my honor and pleasure to introduce to you our extraordinary special guest speakers this evening. It is my honor and privilege to introduce to you first, Farrah Mozawalla. She's an executive director of Nassau County Office of Asian American Affairs. Farrah Mozawalla has advocated for marginalized communities for over 20 years. As the executive director of the Office of Asian American Affairs, Ms. Mozawalla has played an instrumental role in upholding the well-being of the Asian American residents of Nassau County. Under her leadership, the Office of Asian American Affairs analyzed emerging trends of the Asian communities to identify, address its needs and concerns. She has led Office of Asian American Affairs outreach efforts in assisting the Asian community with employment opportunities through workforce development workshops, such as civil service seminars and Minority Women Business Enterprise Forum. The Office of Asian American Affairs, she has also spearheaded several Asian cultural events for the county, which includes Diwali, Ramadan, Iftar, Lunar New Year, and Independence Day celebrations. To bridge the gap between governmental and citizens, she has organized fair housing workshop, stakeholders roundtable discussion with various Asian communities, language access initiatives, mental health seminars, and cultural sensitivity training. Ms. Mozawalla is involved in key governmental committees, such as County Executive Laura Curran's Task Force on Family Violence, the Health Equity Task Force, and the District Attorney's Heroin Prevention Task Force. She currently sits on the Women's Diversity Network Board of Directors, the Red Cross Diversity Committee, and Sisterhood Salam Shalom, a Jewish and Muslim interfaith organization. These committees and organizations have all facilitated meaningful changes within the community. Among the numerous awards Ms. Mozawalla received, she was also named on the City and State Long Island Power 100 list 2020. Ms. Mozawalla graduated summa cum laude from Hofstra University with a Bachelor's of Science and Master's degree in Education. Prior to her being a civic employee, she was a teacher at Lynbrook High School. In addition to her accomplishments as a teacher and government liaison, she also partakes in community service during her free time. If asked what her most notable achievement is, Ms. Mozawalla will say, being a proud mother of 6 children. Thank you so much, Farrah, for being with us this evening and taking time out of your busy schedule to join us on this important conversation. If you could please say, take a minute to say hello and opening remarks.
Good evening. Thank you so much for having me. Senator Brooks, thank you so much for creating awareness about anti-Asian sentiment and the discrimination going on. It's an important conversation. Thank you, Melody and Lucia and the entire team for putting this and organizing this. I'm so honored to be part of this distinguished panel. And most of all, I want to thank the interpreters because it's so important to have interpreters on. And I'm so impressed that you guys are making the effort to, eradicate that barrier of language. So thank you for that. As Senator Brooks has said that you have to have the doors open for understanding. And I think this is a great way to start. I run the Office of Asian American Affairs in Nassau County. It's an agency that was just created approximately 2 years ago by the County Executive Laura Curran. And it's there to address the needs and the concerns of the Asian constituency, which is about 10% of the population of the county. And it's the fastest growing population. So we're basically a bridge between county government and the Asian population, making sure that the information is disseminated to them, finding out the emerging trends, analyzing the data, and making sure that we provide them with the services that they need. Thank you.
Thank you very much and welcome again, Farrah. At this moment, I would like to turn to Daphne to introduce our following guest speaker.
Thank you, Lucia, and welcome again to everyone. Now I have the honor to introduce a colleague and a friend in advocating for diversity, especially in teaching and in the curriculum. With us tonight is Dr. Rhee. Dr. Rhee is a full professor of education in Long Island University Post. Her scholarship focuses on culturally relevant and sustaining education through the lens of race, class, gender, immigration, and other socially constructed differences. She recently, this past year, in October 2020, published her book, Decolonial Feminist Research, Hunting Rememory Mothers, and currently serving as a co-editor of Diversity, Democracy, and Social Justice in Education, a volume of Elsevier's International Encyclopedia of Education. She received her Ph.D. in Educational Policy and Leadership from The Ohio State University her master's in educational psychology from West Virginia University, and her bachelor's in educational psychology from Ewha Women's University in Korea. Welcome tonight, Dr. Rhee, and please take a moment to share remarks.
Thank you, Daphne. So first, I actually want to start by respectfully acknowledging that this event hosted by Senator John Brooks' district resides in the native lands of Merritt, Massapequa, and Sakatole. This recognition is to share my solidarity with the indigenous communities' work against settler colonialism and invite the audience to join in this work as well. For me, to do racial justice works means to build coalition with each other to learn how our coexistence must be explored in ethical and responsible ways. And thus, even when our focus is on combating anti-Asian racism, it matters to voice our self-interest are profoundly and inevitably intertwined with the interest of others. And I also thank Senator Brooke and his office to sponsor this space where different parts of the community can come together to address anti-Asian racism. For me as an educator to discuss racism in the United States, it is important to historicize it. Without proper historical knowledge and understanding, our efforts to fight against racism can only work as a temporary band-aid solutions. That's why it becomes imperative that our educational institutions have to diversify our curriculum and education professionals. Unfortunately, as Daphne has been like strong advocate for this issue, Long Island schools are one of the most segregated districts across through the race and economic divide in the country. And overall, while our student populations are increasingly diverse, and around 45% of Long Island students are students of color, while only 8% of teachers are teachers of color. And this kind of larger structural issues are always intertwined with what's going on with this dramatically increasing anti-Asian racism in current pandemic era. So I hope that while we learn more about the specificities of anti-Asian racism and how to combat them during our discussion, but we also should come up with approaches that can develop broad intersectional coalitions. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Rhee, and for emphasizing the importance of forming coalitions. And I turn it back to Lucia.
Thank you, Daphne. It is my privilege now to introduce to you Suffolk County Police Department Officer Thomas Joy. He's a member of the Suffolk County Asian Advisory Board as well. Officer Thomas Joy was born and raised in southern India in the states of Kerala. He immigrated to New York in 1996 at the age of 17. He completed high school in Orangeburg, New York, and enlisted in the U.S. Army in 1997. Officer Thomas has completed 23 years of service in the U.S. Army on both active duty and in the reserves. During his service, he was assigned for combat duty in Iraq for Operation Iraqi Freedom, which he earned a Officer Thomas was stationed for 4 years in Europe and on other varied assignments throughout the United States. Officer Thomas entered the law enforcement career field as a police officer in 2007 with the City of Mount Vernon Police Department and then with the Suffolk County Police Department starting in 2010, where he currently serves. Thomas earned a bachelor's degree from Mercy College in 2007. He was the founding member of the Suffolk County Police Asian Jade Society, currently the vice president, in 2014, and the American Mayali Law Enforcement United, AMLEU, in 2020, and became its first president. Both organizations focus on community outreach, scholarships for college students, and other philanthropy efforts. Officer Thomas is also board member of the Suffolk County Asian American Advisory Board that advises the county executive on Asian American affairs. Again, thank you so much for being here with us. And right now, if you could please take a minute to say hello and your opening remarks. Thank you and welcome.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Good evening. And I just want to thank Senator Brooks and his staff for putting this together. So we are getting into second and third and fourth generation of Asian Americans in the United States at this point. So we are getting into facets of government, law enforcement, military, government bureaucracy, and every other facet of American life. We are there. However, we are one of the smallest minorities. Even though we are one of the fastest growing, we are still the smallest minority, and our voices are yet not that loud. So I'm glad that we have these organizations and the right focus when there is a problem in society, and leaders like Senator Brooks are standing up for Asian Americans in this community, and through organizations like the Asian American Advisory Board, both in Nassau and Suffolk County, we are bringing our voice to that community, and I'm glad that we are. So I'm here to help, and thank you for having me.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to have you here today. At this moment, I would like to turn it over to Daphne to introduce the next guest.
Daphne.
Thank you, Lucia. And now I have the honor to introduce the youngest voice in our panel. And with us tonight,
패널 중에서 가장 어리신 분 중에서 통역을 말씀 시작하시겠습니다.
okay. So I would like to introduce Sabrina Guo. She's a student at Syosset High School in the North Shore of Long Island. She is also an award-winning writer, poet, social activist, and a young humanitarian. She is the recipient of the Civic Expression Award and an 8-time national medalist from the Scholastic Art and Writing Awards. I want to be like her when I grow up. She is the founder of Girl Pride International, a global nonprofit that serves socioeconomically disadvantaged, refugee, and migrant girls' educational and emotional needs. She is also the founder of Long Island Laboring Against COVID-19, or LILAC, relief organization dedicated to providing PPE, meals, and emotional support to high-risk, underdeserved communities in Long Island and beyond. Thank you for being with us tonight, Sabrina. Although you are very young, so accomplished, and surely an inspiration to many. Please, if you take a moment to say hello and share opening remarks.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much. Thank you, Senator Brooks, for this important roundtable and the invitation. I'm extremely humbled and honored to be a part of this discussion. And I'm looking forward to listening and learning from Senator Brooks and this panel of community leaders, and to make my voice heard and be part of the solution. First, I'd actually like to show this cover of the New Yorker magazine. And this was published recently, and I'm sure many of you have seen this already. Everyone can see the grave concern and fear on the young girl and the mother's faces. And the pressing question really is, what can we do about it? How can we work together to fight this surging hate and violence against the Asian American Pacific Islander community? And I mean, there's systemic racism and bigotry against all minority groups in America. And therefore, that's why people of all colors, and that also means all of us who are condemning hate crimes and discrimination and the atrocities of hate, need to form alliances to support and empower each other. So I'm looking forward to seeing today's discussion translate into meaningful actions, proposals, and I hope that there will be bills or legislations that will facilitate and streamline the hate incident and hate crime reporting process, and that local and state governments can fight for the provision of funding to community organizations and social service groups to address and remediate these stubborn and increasingly terrifying urgent problems that affect all of us. And so with that, I'm ready to learn today and make a difference. Thank you again to the Office of Senator Brooks.
Thank you so much, Sabrina, for your wisdom and for your encouraging words to all of us. It is a time for action indeed. Thank you. And with that, I will turn now to Lucia, who will introduce our next panelist. We can hear you, Lucia.
Thank you, Daphne. Before we introduce the next speaker, we're going to take a moment just to change the interpreters right now. Just bear with me for just a moment.
We're good to go, Lucia. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Okay, thank you, Thank you, Daphne and Melody. So at this moment, it is my privilege and honor to introduce to you our guest speaker, who is Dr. Gordon Zhang, Ph.D. He is the president and founder of Long Island Chinese American Association and board of directors, Asian American Coalition of Education. Gordon Zhang, PhD, is a senior principal of technology company in New York. He is a prolific inventor in the wireless communication technology field with more than 300 granted patents and 400 pending patents applications. His research has received more than 10,000 citations in the industry and academia. Dr. Zhang is the founding president of Long Island Chinese American Association, LICAA. He has served on the Nassau County Asian Advisory Council since 2019, and he also serves as a board director of Asian American Coalition of Education. It is an honor to have you here today. Thank you so much, everyone, for taking your time out of your busy schedule to join us in this important discussion that we're going to be having tonight. So with any other further ado, I'm going to ask Daphne that we could start our conversation and our questions to our panelists. Again, thank you so much for being with us. It is an honor to have you all here.
Yeah, Dr. Zhang, you want to share some remarks? Take a moment. We can't hear you.
Oh, I was muted, sorry. Yeah, thanks for having me here. Want to thank Senator John Brooks for the invitation for this roundtable discussion. I also want to thank our moderators, Melody and Lucia, Daphne, and the whole team putting this discussion together. It's meant a lot. It's very important for us. I want to say a few words about LICA, Long Island Chinese American Association. Yeah, we have been quite active in the community for years. Since the beginning of the pandemic, we have raised money and donated PPE to hospital, first responders, essential workers. By the way, that's how I met Officer Thomas Joy last year, I think the end of March. And that's also how I met Sabrina last year, actually exactly the same day, April 15 last year. Besides that, we have done a lot of work helping the local small business, providing pandemic relief effort by providing all sort of free education like music, Tai Chi, and etc. For students and parents who feel stuck at home. My work at the Nassau County Asian Advisory Council is to work with Asian American Affairs Office and Farrah's team to bridge Asian American community and Nassau County government on many aspects. For example, to bring awareness of public policies, government service, or voice the concern from Asian American communities. As we know, since the beginning of the pandemic, the hate crime and violence against Asian American and surged across the country, and recently getting worse. The Atlanta shooting, even after that, you see a long list of horrific attack. It's happened every week. It gets on the news, gets on the TV. As an organization, we have organized or participate multiple rallies throughout Long Island and call on our government and elected officials to take concrete actions to provide protection, provide resource to make pass legislative bills to stop hate crime so yeah, I'll be happy to discuss all these things like what as a community member, what we can do and work together to stop the hate crime. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Zhang. And you remind us and it's a great segue in posing the first question, which is to all 5 panelists. As you said, we know that since the start of the pandemic, the number of attacks and hate crimes against the Asian American Pacific Islanders community have increased. But we also know that everyone has a role in stopping hate and creating safe, inclusive communities. So my question to you is, what everyday actions can community members take to help combat hate? We'll start with Farrah Mozawalla. Ms. Mozawalla.
Thank you. That's a very insightful question. You know, a lot of racism comes from within. We grow up unconsciously absorbing stereotypes, and those stereotypes, you know, they inform our sense of what a certain demographic is. And because of that, a lot of casual racism flies under our personal radar. So when an Asian person or any person seems visibly uncomfortable with something, you should be able to pick up that cue and educate yourself on the mistreatment that might have been directed their way. Asians in general are taught not to vocalize their discomfort, and they, even when they do, a lot of times they get dismissed because of that whole model minority myth, which we really have to work hard to dispel. You know, we want to be attentive and stop yourself from dismissing what other people are feeling, but learn to deal with it. I think racism a lot of times stems from homes, and we need to educate. That's the most important thing. Educate people on how to realize this sense of racism that they have, or this sense of, you know, just not understanding other cultures. So we really need to educate and get to know each other.
Thank you, Ms. Mozawalla. As an educator myself, I couldn't agree with you more on that. Dr. Rhee?
So there are a whole lot of things that individuals can do and make impacts in really changing what's going on in our society. But also at the same time, I think it's also important that, like, how the kind of the systematical racism has kind of created a condition, right, where the particularly racialized group experience a very different kind of racism. And so, like, if I use my own example, as an Asian middle-aged woman now here, to be honest, like, I actually never experienced this kind of physical threat in my own body in everyday experiences before this pandemic. And that actually highlights some of the privileges that I have definitely enjoyed, right, as a cisgender woman. I have heard from a lot of my Black and Brown friends and colleagues in terms of how they actually always have to deal with those kind of physical threats and then safety issues in their everyday actions. But now I am actually going through that experience on my own, because actually I have to make different decisions in terms of, okay, like, where do I go? And do I go by myself? And is it that area would be actually safe enough for me to navigate? And so I think what I'm kind of trying to say here is that we definitely have to learn, like, a lot about how different communities face different kind of conditions of life that come from racism. And for that, we need to actually build multiple relationships. And so one thing that I ask my students actually in classroom is that reflect on your social life. Do you actually have diversity in your life? If you don't, then you're not gonna hear from how different how people experience their life in different situations and conditions. And so I think it's kind of really important for us to expand our social relationships to include the diverse community members.
Thank you, Dr. Rhee. And I have to say that is so true. And because we have a relationship on a regular basis, I was able to hear firsthand from you the experiences of Asian Americans in this country, and that has enlightened me and informed me tremendously. So thank you. And yes, it is important to expand your number of friends and your social life. We'd like to go now to Officer Thomas Joy, please.
So what I think is everything starts at home. What we speak at home and what we say at home, our kids learn. So it doesn't matter what race you are, what color, or how successful or how educated you are. What you speak and say at home, your kids learn, and then your kids perpetuate what you said. And that's how the cycle goes. So start at home and teach the right thing to kids, to be respectful of people in general, to be loving and caring for each other. And for community members, don't be an innocent bystander. When you hear derogatory terms being used, like the Chinese virus and Kung Flu and all these different things that you hear, don't be an innocent bystander and just hear it. And even though you may not say it, speak up and be mindful of how it affects people of different races and colors and religions, and how simple words can be hurtful and impactful, and report things if it comes to that level. And not reporting or underreporting could be definitely an issue, because the DA's office, the police department, community leaders, county executive cannot allocate resources if things are not said, not reported, or underreported. So right now on Long Island, and specifically in Suffolk County, we don't have many hate crimes or hate incidents to report off. It could be that it's not happening, but it's also possible that it's not being reported because community members or your neighbors are not speaking out about things that are happening in your space. So that's it.
Thank you, Officer Joy. Very important what we say and what we model at home, as well as speaking up and speaking out. Thank you. Sabrina?
Yes, I think that this conversation right here, right now, it's the first of many steps to push for change. I think that community members can reach out and listen to others who don't look like us. I mean, look at our panel today. I mean, we're the epitome of diversity. I think that's simply amazing. To learn and understand each other, especially during such tough times like a pandemic, when we need each other's support more than ever. We can educate ourselves, reach out to those who are vulnerable in our communities and neighborhoods who may not look like us, and also making connections and building bridges of understanding and trust. That's a key part of addressing complex and stubborn issues like discrimination and hate. I think that empathy, compassion, and generosity can go a long way when we are willing to open ourselves up to listen to each other and respect each other's differences. Of course, acceptance and tolerance takes patience and willpower, and history has taught us that conflict resolution is an arduous process that needs to be cultivated over time. So I think that especially for the youth who are watching, if you have time on your hand, volunteer for community organizations and local social service groups that serve to bring people together to heal, or be an interpreter for a social service organization that needs bilingual skills to help victims to report a hate incident or crime, participate in events like town halls and community events that inform us and provide resources and know-hows. And especially when we see something, don't be an innocent bystander, report it to the proper authorities to keep us all safe. And truly, there's nothing too small to make an impact.
Thank you so much, Sabrina. Very eloquent and very wise again. Communication is key with each other and on behalf of others as well, right? Dr. Zhang?
Yeah, in my view, there's so many things a community member can do. You know, we always say, you see something, say something, or do something. Don't be a bystander. On that, I call Officer Joy and Sabrina. As we know that we have this New York Crime Stopper hotline is operating 24/7. You know, when you see something, call that number. And just I think in both New York State, New York City, and Nassau County, Suffolk County, we all have the hate crime report hotline, and also the Nassau County Asian American Affairs Office. They also have dedicated staff to answer phone calls, you know, listen to complaints. You should, you know, definitely do something. Besides that, recently there's a lot of rallies, you know, whether it's organized by elected official, by Asian American community, or by high school student. I encourage people to participate in those events. And also, yeah, when you see news report of elected official or effort like elected official to condemn hate crime, or you see news like today's news, the Senate, the federal Senate passed a bill of COVID-19 hate crime. Yeah, you should help to spread the news. For example, using the hashtag Stop Hate Crime. That will help. That will help on the social media. Actually, it's very powerful, you know. And besides that, I would say for each community member, don't forget, you know, you also have your New York State Assembly members, right? Your Senate members, your Congress members, your federal Senate, your town councilman, your Suffolk County or Nassau County, no matter which county you live in, you have your county legislator. When you feel that they need to do something about this hate crime, write an email to them, right? Or call their office directly. I think that also helps. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Zhang. And those are the type of actions that we should be encouraging others to do. I know that shortly we are going to be switching, so I'm going to ask that you hold on. Melody, you tell me when it's okay to continue, because the interpreters are switching at this time, right?
Yes, sorry, just give us 1 minute. We'll be done shortly.
Mel, could I just make a comment?
Yes, go ahead.
I want to apologize in my opening remarks. I was kind of concentrating on some of our guests tonight, but I omitted a pretty important segment. As I said that, you know, ships and boats and planes, and some of us came in chains. And I apologize for not addressing the violent Black community in terms of the discrimination they've always they had. So I just wanted to recognize their situation, and I apologize for the oversight. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Brooks. May I continue now, yes. Melody?
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I will go now back to Officer Joy for the next question, since, you know, he mentioned hate crimes and hate incidents. I have kind of a question with two parts for you. What is the difference between a hate crime and a hate incident? And also, how should community members report a hate crime or incident? Help us understand that.
Okay, so the first thing to understand is about hate crimes is who are the protected people. So it's a specific statute in the New York State Penal Law. So the specific people, or it's called a protected class, and this is a protected class. A particular race, color, national origin, ancestry, gender identity or expression, religion, religious practice, age 6 years or older, disability, or sexual orientation. If that is the protected class according to New York State penal law. So if a person commits or intends to commit a specified offense, there are about 55 specified offenses in New York State penal law. It could be anything as small as petty larceny, ranging to murder. So if you commit one of these specified penal law offenses and is based on the belief or perception regarding the protected class, then that is a hate crime. So if you want to take a New York State look at the penal law, it's New York State Penal Law Section 485.05, and it shows the protected class and the specified offenses according to New York State penal law. Anything that falls outside that specified law is categorized in the Suffolk County Police Department as a hate incident. So if it does not amount to a crime in that specified instance, then it becomes a hate incident. So for the police department itself, there is no difference between a hate crime or hate incident as far as investigation or resources are concerned. So the moment there is a crime that's committed regarding with this protected group of people, the protected class, that has an element of hate, there's a hate crimes detective that is dispatched to the scene and investigates the incident, and the proper penal law or hate crime is applied or categorized as hate incident. Now, even hate incidents are important to be categorized and documented for future investigative purposes, because the person that commits hate incidents and it may not be a crime could be the same person that could be doing it in the future or have done it in the past that we don't know about. So that's the specific difference between hate crimes and hate incidents. I also published an informational flyer for the community, and I'm sure you'll be providing that to the community members after this briefing. But if there is a specific incident that's going on, the first thing to do is protect yourself and then call 911 for immediate assistance. We also have a hate crimes unit phone number that you can use if you want to report something. It's 631-852-6323. That'll be provided to you after as well. And for resources for victims of hate crimes or hate incidents, parentsformeganslaw.org is an excellent resource for you.
Thank you very much. And I think on the screen, you might be able to see some of that information as well. A very important distinction. With that, we're going to go to the next question, which is to everyone. Just Lucia, you will ask the next question.
Okay, so next question is for actually Farrah Mozawalla. What resources does Nassau County Office of Asian American Affairs offer for victims that are experiencing discrimination?
So if you can see from the slide, what happened was that right in the beginning of the pandemic, our office recognized the need through our Asian American Advisory Council that there will be attacks on Asian people because of the fact that, through the federal government, we were hearing a lot of rhetoric going on. So we created a fact sheet with a lot of the resources available to people. And in that, we have the Nassau County Human Rights Commission, the police department, the Nassau County Office of Crime Victim Advocacy, the district attorney for Nassau County, the New York State Office of Victim Services. All of these are resources for people to call if they are in need. And of course, if it's not life-threatening, I can't say it enough, please call our office for any of the microaggressions you have so we can help help you navigate to where you need to call, and also so we can record the trends, so we can see if there's any emerging trends. Is there certain areas or pockets where we're seeing more of these microaggressions, so we can let elected officials know about that. So it's really important for our Asian constituents and all constituents to know that they should be reporting any of these microaggressions and letting our office know about them. Thank you, Lucia.
Wow, this is amazing. Thank you so much. This is a lot of valuable resources that we have. So, you know, this is actually being recorded and you could view in the Senator Brooks' Facebook account. So if you don't get a chance to get all those contact informations, please go back, or if you could always go back to Office of Asian American Affairs, Nassau County, to get all those links as well. Thank you so much for that valuable information, Farrah. At this moment, we're going to ask Daphne to ask the following question.
Sorry, Daphne, you're muted.
Thank you, Melody. So we're going to ask the next question, which is to Dr. Rhee. Dr. Rhee, as an educator, what tools have you used to educate others about racism and discrimination? What tools do you suggest for other educators to use in addressing this with their students?
So in terms of the tools, there are just so many. If you are interested in actually just looking for, right? There are so many organizations like Rethinking Schools, Tolerance Education, the New York Collective of Radical Educators. And so each organization offer so many resources for curriculum, pedagogy, and ways to transform school structures and etc. And I think what really matters here is not necessarily accessibility or availabilities of the tools, but what kind of priorities that each educator brings to really address these issues as a part of their responsibilities. Because I think oftentimes we get kind of really confused in terms of like, what would be the purpose of education? And oftentimes we get caught up with, you know, standardized testings, academic performances, or, you know, different kind of accountabilities that the school districts or the state require educators to pay more attention to, rather than actually the purpose of education is for all of us to be able to develop knowledge and skills to kind of really develop sustainable communities, both the local and global level. And so I think still we are so behind in terms of kind of really changing our curriculum, in terms of how the curriculum can serve all of us to be able to kind of really understand the history of this country, and also the relationships that we actually have built throughout the history, and then like where we want to go from here, right? Like, for example, even the term of race itself, oftentimes people actually don't even know what that means. When I ask my students who are both pre-service teachers and sometimes in-service teachers, ask what are the difference between race, ethnicity, and nationality, oftentimes they cannot answer. And so I think the point that I'm trying to hear is that we kind of really need a different kind of curriculum and pedagogy that really help us to learn to address the issues that we see as part of building really relatable and sustainable communities that are diverse and inclusive and equal. So I think that's the stance that I would take.
Yes, thank you very much. And that's an important point. Our curriculum needs to be inclusive, and that means that we need to hear from different voices and different cultures. The textbooks sometimes that we have are mostly written by one particular ethnicity or race, and that sometimes takes away from us understanding really in a comprehensive way our history. Thank you, Dr. Rhee. The next question is, it's for you, but also for Dr. Zhang, because you both, are in the education world. What are your thoughts on the recent framework proposed by the Board of Regents this past Monday to advance diversity, equity, and inclusion in New York schools? We'll start with Dr. Zhang.
Yeah, I downloaded a copy of this document, 12-page document. The framework is quite broad. It doesn't specify a specific curriculum or list of lessons schools should teach, but instead it pushes school districts to develop concrete policies that advance diversity, equity, and inclusion, and urge school districts to implement those policies with fidelity and urgency. The framework called for a deeper understanding of American history, especially the story of marginalized minority groups, which have been oppressed during the over time. America is a great nation by immigrants. We must tell the story of all of those who have contributed to this country, and also their discrimination they have suffered throughout the history. Just talking from Asian American perspective, one cannot fully understand Americans' involvement in World War II without knowing what happened in the Japanese American internment camp, right, which is done by their own government, and without knowing that the enlisted ratio of Chinese American to serve in the military during World War II was 22% or even higher, one of the highest percentage among all racial groups. So in my view, the framework is a very positive development for New York State public school. Many of those racism, bigotry, and hate crime, violence we saw today in the news, and it can be sort of been blamed to the lack of education of diversity, equity, etc. in the school system for many years. So this is something along you. In order to stop the racism and bigotry in the future, the effort must start with the education of the kid today. The student sitting in today's classroom will be the next generation of adults in the society. I believe if the framework is appropriately implemented, it will benefit us. By us, I didn't mean only the Asian American community. I mean all the minority group and all the everyone in the entire society for many decades to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Zhang, and thank you for making that statement. Diversity in teaching and diversity in curriculum is good for all children. And it's something that I'm glad the regions are making an explicit step moving forward. Dr. Rhee, you want to add something to that?
I mean, I guess I would just concur with what Dr. Chang said, and also, what you just said. So it's a kind of really good initiative for the regions to highlight like why we actually have to pay careful and intentional attention to the issues of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I also appreciated that they are kind of really looking into the systematic changes, because oftentimes, as I have already commented a little bit, individual actions and contributions definitely make differences, but unless there's a structural transformations, it gets really hard to really start new with our evolving visions for the future. And so, but I think this is a right step to take. And I am also aware that, a couple of years ago, the New York State Education Department issued culturally relevant and sustaining education framework. Although that hasn't been fully implemented yet, I hope that the region would kind of really take a more active step to implement that framework as well, in addition to what they put out as the approach of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I mean, if I add even one more, Daphne and I actually have been working to push a bill to really put the chief officers of diversity in each school district. And I hope that that bill also come into fruition so that all education institutions can actually become accountable for this kind of commitment.
Thank you very much. And I just would like also to get, what will be your take on this, Sabrina, as a student, from your, point of view as a student? What are your thoughts about this initiative and this priority of the Board of Regents in advancing a framework that speaks to diversity, inclusion, and equity in schools?
I mean, I think that they are so important, and I'm glad to see that they're happening. And I hope that, federal, state, and local government and agencies can continue to work more closely with each other and with local community organizations and social service groups to address these hate incidents and crimes committed against the API community. And of course, hearings and roundtables like this are very beneficial to get members of our community engaged, to actually make voices and concerns matter and be tabled at a local level. And I recall that Congresswoman Grace Meng has pushed hard to get bipartisan support for the COVID-19 Hate Crimes Act. And this bill combats the ongoing anti-Asian racism and violence and really all types of hate related to coronavirus. And I hope that other legislators at the local, state, and federal level will push for similar legislations to protect those who are the most vulnerable, like the elders, women, and children who are sought out by hate crime perpetrators, and to encourage and empower victims to speak out and speak up instead of staying quiet, because sharing the experience, while painful, most certainly, does make a positive difference in the long run in helping others to learn how to fight back. I also learned that earlier this month, New York State has set aside a budget of about $10 million for community and social service organizations to fight anti-Asian hate crimes and violence. And I think all of these combined are encouraging steps, and no doubt that these actions are a result of the unprecedented, massive, and unified efforts of many, many people who are coming out to fight for equality and justice.
Thank you so much, Sabrina. And very true. Speaking up and speaking out changes, minds, changes hearts, and it also changes policies. So very important. And with that, I'd like to go to one more question before we open for the question and answer section. And this is for everyone. We'll start with Ms. Mozawalla. What is one thing you would like the non-Asian community to understand about the AAPI community? Something, a myth perhaps, or something that can help us understand the Asian community better?
So I think, thank you so much. I think one of the most important things is people need to realize that the Asian community is not just one monolithic community. It's extremely diverse with different religions, different cultures, different etiquettes. It's, you have Pakistanis, you have Indians, you have Chinese, you have Koreans, you have different groups within each of these countries and ethnicities. So it's not a monolithic group. And it has a history in America from so many 1800s, 1900s. So people need to understand the history of the Asian American community. It's a vibrant community. There are a lot of disparities within this community. And I think as long as we learn to understand and learn about these different communities, the better we get to understand ourselves and get to know each other better. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mozawalla. Dr. Rhee, what will be one thing you would like us to understand, learn about the Asian community?
I think I'm going to actually kind of echo what Farrah Mozawalla said, because Asian American Pacific Islander community is a community that comes as an outcome of racism of the United States. Nothing actually binds us naturally as a one group. We have more than 47 ethnic groups, which speak all different languages, which have all different religions and political values, and also inter-ethnic histories that really complicate our relationships. However, that doesn't mean that this community is not real. It is real, because racism is real. So we actually have come together as a kind of almost a political community to survive together. And so I think like that's kind of something that we all need to understand. And then on top of that, each racialized group have its own racial history, meaning that why one of the most common racial slurs that Asian Americans hear is "go back home," has something to do with the fact that actually the first immigration law from the United States was the one that excluded Chinese and subsequently all Asian groups, preventing coming to the United States as immigrants and then becoming Americans. And so that kind of institutionalized history matter to understand our current racism. And I think, you know, that kind of historical knowledge and understanding matters.
Thank you, very important, very important, just that history lesson that you gave us. We're gonna switch interpreters at this point, so if you could just take a moment. You let me know, Melody, when we are ready to proceed.
Will do, thank you, sorry about this. We're all good to go. Thank you, Daphne.
Thank you so much, Melody. We'd like to continue with Officer Thomas Joy. If you could share with us one thing you would like us to know about the Asian American Pacific Islanders community.
One thing I want to, because we are such a small community in the bigger facet of American life, people tend to forget the contribution and the commitment of Asian Americans in American history. One of the things I'd like to mention is the railroad that connected east to the west was built by Chinese laborers. World War II, Japanese Americans, despite being interned, and they lost all their belongings and everything that they earned, their households and everything else, yet they fought for America in World War II. And every major war, Asian Americans have been there, even in this pandemic. Asian American doctors and nurses on the front edge of the pandemic, helping people out, and even research into the vaccinations. The contribution of Asian Americans is nothing is not a small thing in this in American history. So you have to understand the commitment of Asian Americans, and you have to, if you learn our history, we are not a small part of American history. We have played our role, and we still continue to play that role even today. Maybe we're not as big, and we don't have that great voice like other communities, but our commitment and our and what we have given back to this community and our nation is just invaluable to our history. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Officer Joy. And indeed, we celebrate and we appreciate the contributions, and we should, as educators, and I'm speaking for myself, should highlight in our curriculum that more. And Sabrina, if you'd like to share with us.
Yes, thank you. I think that this hate is not just an issue for the AAPI communities and POC communities, and it's not even just an American issue. It's a human issue, and I think that we all need to come together as a united front to combat this hate and aggression that has been going on for years and years. But I also like to just briefly mention some of the work that our organizations have been doing, because I think that it'll raise awareness and inspire many others, especially youth who are watching today, to get more involved in communities and what they can do. So as the founders of Long Island Laboring Against COVID-19, or LILAC, and Girl Pride International, we take pride in organizing initiatives that bring people together, become more informed, make connections, and build understanding and solidarity. And awareness doesn't just stop with being a part of meaningful conversations or publishing our views in the paper or online, or making a statement on TV and calling for change. We need to do more to back up our words and rhetoric with actions that affect legislations, for example, that can lead to measurable and positive change for people's lives. Like, for example, LILAC is multidisciplinary, but we are very proud of our work in using our creative talents in art, music, dance, and video making skills to, for example, support the Black Lives Matter movement, to call for racial and social equality and justice by creating like 60 Black Lives Matter inspired artworks with calligraphies, some of which are displayed in Nassau County Legislative Hall now. And these over 200 thoughtful and uplifting artwork that's donated to frontline essential workers all over hospitals, nursing homes, etc., just shows what our community can do together in a time like this. And I think that also goes to show the extent to which we can combat hate if we all come together. I just think that it's also very important, speaking from a teenager's point of view, to have more dialogues with school teachers and administrators to include discussions of racially motivated microaggression issues in and out of the classroom, as it's not just about Asian students, but all students. And we've all heard about the spike in school bullying and microaggression that's related to anti-Asian biases and discrimination. So it's even more so important to be proactive and not just reactive. I think that before, I'm sure many people agree with this sentiment, that before I call myself an Asian American, I am an American. And to paraphrase Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., nobody should judge others by the color of their skin, but by the content of our character. And I think that's really the beauty and grace of humanity, and that is what we need to combat racism. And personally, I actually did experience discrimination even when I was donating PPEs. Like when I was at this COVID hospital during the holiday season, a passerby couple made an obscene and very crude gesture towards me when I was being filmed by a TV crew when donating PPEs. And they also said something that was inaudible to me, but the reporter and videographer were outraged. And I was just shocked and saddened by that instant. But of course, that does not stop me or any LILAC members from continuing to do our work. And I think that's important, that persistence and that determination, because that's what we need to do. That's right, what the right thing to do is, and we stay the course.
Thank you so much, Sabrina. Thank you for bringing so much understanding, awareness, and contribution, to all Long Island, and speaking from your student point of view. Dr. Zhang?
Yeah.
One thing that you would like us to know?
Yeah, regarding that, I first want to echo what Farrah and Thomas and also Dr. Rhee said about Asian American is a very diverse community. We come from all different backgrounds, etc. And also we should know Asian Americans' great contribution to this country from the beginning. Besides that, there are two things I want to mention. I often heard, in some of the online discussion, I often heard, people ask the question, why, when the federal or state gave the pandemic relief fund, why should Asian American small business owner get a share? You guys are doing so well. You're the model minority. I just want to let people know that this so-called model minority is a myth. Asian American community is not only diverse in the background, also there's a big gap in everything, education, income, etc. Actually in New York State, about 20 to 25% of Asian Americans live below poverty line. And since the beginning of the pandemic, before other businesses got hit, Asian American small business owners are among the first ones who got hit, and they got hit really, really bad. And the increase of unemployment rate of Asian American is higher than any other group. Right? Yeah. And second thing, Thomas said, Asian American the population in the U.S. is quite small, right? I think it's somewhere between 5 to 6%. So with that, we have about somewhere between 19 to 20 million people, but we are the fast growing immigrant group. And more importantly, for a long time, Asian Americans have been silent, been marginalized. We have been the invisible victim. But I would like people to know that we are waking up. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Zhang. Great insights from all of you. And we do know that's very true. We look carefully at the statistics and data here on Long Island, and one of the fastest growing student population is indeed the Asian population. So thank you. At this time, I would like to turn the mic back to Lucia, who will complete the program. Thank you to all of you.
Thank you, Daphne. I appreciate all those questions and everybody wonderful answers. I think that you really have created awareness by having this conversation this evening and having this dialogue. So it is so true. Everybody had really important elements to share tonight, and I thank you for that. I know that many of the speakers already have addressed this, but I just want to ask this last question, and it's going to go for Dr. Zhang. As an advocate and founder of organizations, what ways are you using your platforms to share the awareness?
Yeah, we have a newsletter. We have our a social media group. As of last month, we have about slightly over 20,000 subscribers in the Long Island areas. We as the name suggests, we are Long Island Chinese American Association. So most of the subscribers are Chinese American who can read Chinese. We have over years, we have using those platforms to do a lot, spread the awareness on many aspects, not only about how to fight hate crime, how to report hate crime, about the policy, notification of rally, etc., but also voter awareness and promote our members' awareness to participate, to be more actively participate in the community, in the local community, in the public affairs. Also we spread news on Facebook and etc. For a lot of those important policy, for example, from Nassau and Suffolk County, we help to spread them as well. For example, the availability of the vaccine shot and etc.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. So we could see that there's a lot of resources out there available. And I encourage everyone who's watching as well, to, follow up with, these speakers that we had this evening, because they are doing a lot to make a difference. Again, Farrah, thank you for being here, and Dr. Rhee, Officer Thomas, Joy, Sabrina, and Dr. Zhang. At this moment, I would like to pass it to Joe, who is our Director of Communication Director, who has additional questions from the audience. So thank you so much, and it's really been a pleasure and an honor to hear from all of you. So Joe, I'll turn it over to you for additional questions from the audience. Thank you.
Thank you, Lucia, and thank you to everyone on this panel. I'd also just like to congratulate you on the incredible good works that each of you do in your communities. And thank you again for sharing those experiences with us here tonight. I'm going to be reading out some questions that have come in from the audience while we, that have sort of live questions that have come up during each presentation. What I'll do is I'm going to direct these questions. I have a nice handful of them so far, and I'm going to direct them to the panelists that I feel it most suited to answer them. But then, of course, if any of the other panelists feel that they have something to say on it, please, we encourage you to speak up as well. And as far as the audience participants, if you continue to have questions, I encourage you to just write them into the Q&A function, and I can pull those up as we go. So first off, let me just pull this up here. I'm going to direct this to Officer Joy. By the way, Officer Joy organized an incredible rally at the Suffolk Executive Building a few weeks back, and I was there, and it was just an amazing coming together of so many different perspectives, groups, people, and it really, exchange of ideas. But I do have to say that the show was absolutely stolen by his 6 or 7-year-old son, who did the Pledge of Allegiance, and people are still talking about that. So, but it really was an amazing event that you put together, Officer Thomas, and I thank you for that, for all of your efforts. So this question I'm going to direct towards you. Is it true that as a witness, your personal information will be shared with suspects, which jeopardizes witness safety? This is obviously, I know this is a big concern amongst a lot of people. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Absolutely. Confidentiality is very important, and we understand the fears of people for coming out, but we keep that information very confident. If you would like that, it may be important in some scenarios where we would ask you to come out and testify, if that's the case, if you're a witness to a crime, but you are not obligated to by any stretch. You can remain anonymous, you can report it. You do not have to participate in any investigative process or anything else after the fact. If you just want to report it, remain anonymous, that is okay. This information will not be divulged, and it will not be used if you would like to remain anonymous.
Thank you. And I'm just going to stick with you because there is a follow-up question on that. If the offender is also a minority, part of that protected class, would it still be considered a hate crime? And given the offense that was committed based upon the victim's protected class?
Absolutely. If the crime itself is based on the perpetrator's perception. So whatever that perception is, if it relates to that protected class, it does not matter whether he is of the same protected class or not. It could be considered a hate crime as long as it's part of the 55 or so crimes that are listed in the penal law, or it could be prosecuted as a hate incident, or just or not as a hate crime, just as a hate incident. But the law does not preclude someone just because you are also part of the protected class. If you commit a hate crime, it just goes away. That's not how it works.
Thank you. All right. Let's see here. Give me 1 second. Dr. Rhee and Dr. Zhang, this question I want to direct towards both of you because it has to do with educational practices, but I also before I put it to each of you, I think this question is very interesting, with the initial answer coming from the perspective of a high school student. So I would love to get Sabrina's take on this, and then I'll pass it off to you folks. So Sabrina, other than increasing the number of people of color educators on Long Island, what kind of changes in curriculum would you recommend to principals in our public high schools to broaden the knowledge of students beyond the Euro-American experience?
Right, that's a great question. Well, as a sophomore at high school, I think that there are certain acts or historical events that are not went into depth extensively, and I think that in part is due to the way things are set up in the U.S. and the fact that we have our own national pride. But I think that gets in the way of fully understanding the human part of history and how it has negatively affected minorities, etc. And I think there should be more changes for that. I'd also like to just slightly pivot. I also saw that question in chat about how youth can actually take initiative to combat this. And I think that the youth should reach out to administrators, teachers, and like emails. Don't be afraid to speak out and voice your concern, because as the youth, we have our own civic duty to pave the way for future generations. And in order to do that, we cannot be afraid to speak up. And I think, of course, use your own creative talents. There's many methods of reaching out and making change. Like, for example, in LILAC, we have very skilled editors and artists who've made documentaries, thanking our teachers and sanitation workers who have worked tirelessly to keep us safe and engaged. So that just goes to show how many different creative methods there are to make change. It's not just about speaking up, but with art, there are so many forms. Yeah.
Thank you, Sabrina, for a very interesting and nuanced response. And I think I can speak for many people on this webinar when I say I am looking forward to voting for you someday. We have some more questions from your colleague from LILAC. We'll get to that in a little bit, but right now I'd like to ask Dr. Rhee what your response to that question would be as an academic.
I'm also voting for her, so count me in. And I mean, I also have to say that, like, young people always inspires me and kind of really sustains me in terms of like the work that I do, because you are the really, hope and the change agents that I can totally depend on. And in that regard, I think students' initiatives definitely matter in curriculum changes. Oftentimes, curriculum change comes from top down, but I think schools should be actually open for really considering what students want to learn as a part of the curriculum decision. So that's one thing. And then I think another thing that like I would really encourage the school leaders to consider is to adopt ethnic studies as one kind of curriculum. In higher educations, there have been a lot of struggles and changes happening in really instilling the ethnic studies as a major. Unfortunately for Asian American communities, there are only 25 higher education institutions that have Asian American studies as a majors. And so I think it's really important for students to be able to learn both the history and government and literatures and other kind of academic subjects by centering themselves in exploring all those areas. And ethnic studies can be actually a place where students can do. And I am aware that California actually has approved ethnic studies as a part of their core curriculum. And then Connecticut actually also approved that as a part of the legislations to include that curriculum for K-12 schools. So I hope that New York also consider that. And yeah, so I think I'm gonna just stop there.
Thank you, Dr. Rhee. And actually, I'd be very interested in speaking with you further on those different state curriculums that you were talking about at a later time. Dr. Zhang, I'm going to ask you to speak, but I'm actually going to, I need to pause for a second because it is time for us to switch over our translators. If we can all just take a moment, and Melody, just let me know when we're ready to go.
Will do, thank you.
So that everyone is aware, we're simulcasting in 4 different languages, 5 actually, but 4 of which we have interpreters for. And for each language, we have 2 interpreters, and they switch back and forth every, I think, 25 minutes. So sometimes it can be a little bit, a cacophony can happen, of noise can happen. So we just opted to just pause for a moment when that happens. So Dr. Zhang, very interested in your perspective on this.
Yeah, on this issue, I echo what Dr. Rhee and Sabrina just said. Besides that, what I want to mention is the school teacher, right, including the even the board of education, superintendent and all the way down, they really need to take this diversity and equity and inclusion seriously. They should have more sensitivity training. It's probably even more important than a specific or particular curriculum. But however, I agree, American history curriculum with enough chapter to cover Asian American history is very important. Besides what Dr. Rhee mentioned, I just heard last week, Illinois state start to push legislative initiative to add Asian American curriculum in the State Department Education Department curriculum. I think New York, we should now fall behind those states, right? We should be a role model for the rest of the country. Just continue on the school staff or teacher and staff on the awareness, on the sensitivity and the diversity training. We have members coming to us in the past year. Beside some of the students in school made bad joke and gave through racist harassment, all this verbal attack, sometimes even teachers, they have bad joke. It was, I'll give you one example. Even a couple of months ago in one of the Massapequa, the school district BOE meeting, the board member, the chair of the BOE made a very bad joke about China virus. And nobody, including a superintendent, all the board members, nobody step up and stop her. But we got reported from our members, they got really pissed off, So, I mean, that kind of thing sent a really, really bad message for all the students and parents in the school district. So beside curriculum and other things, we need to make sure the faculty and staff in each school district receive appropriate training and take it seriously. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Zhang. Thank you very much. All right, I've got 2 more questions. Next one I'm going to direct to Officer Joy. Basically, the question is just about what kind of increases and or levels of patrols have you seen or have you experienced in the Asian communities since the coronavirus and this increase in sort of Asian hate crimes?
So in Suffolk County, we only have a few areas that are home to a large Asian American population, one being Stony Brook. So there is a Stony Brook police department that is in-house. They are pretty much aware of the same intelligence and everything else that we receive in Suffolk County Police Department. But there's no increased presence of police officers, concentrated into one community, because we don't have that great population anywhere. We have some restaurants maybe, but we don't have anything directed. But if there is a problem in any particular community that we're not aware of, bring it to attention. And then I'm sure we will work to address that. And we do have community liaison officers in each precinct. So if there is any community leader that sees any problem, you can bring it up to the community liaison officer in each precinct, or to the Asian American Advisory Board, or to the Suffolk County Police Asian Jade Society. So we have different resources that we can use. But so far, we don't have any specified directed police enforcement to any particular community. One, because we don't have that large piece, but the department is aware of all the incidents that are happening, and we'll be happy to make those resources available if needed.
Thank you. Thank you very much. All right, so we just got, I know I said we had two more, but now we have two more, but we can make them quick. We just got a question. Sabrina, apparently your guidance counselor is on the line. And she actually has a very good question. What kind of thoughts, and I put this out to the whole panel as well, on how to raise awareness of these issues among faculty?
Right. Well, I think change starts with education in and out of the classroom, from our teachers, parents, and community leaders. And I think that, first of all, for students, I know firsthand, some of my friends are not very outspoken and afraid of using their voice to make change even when they want to. So I think it's important to encourage uncomfortable conversations starting young, frankly, like even in elementary school. They can be very basic. And as a writer myself, I actually see a lot of books that are read to children which have blatant microaggression in them and stereotypes. And I think these things need to be brought into light, especially for kids who are growing up in this environment that we're in right now. And as for our school pride, I just think that it's, with faculty, I think it's very important to engage in conversations with teachers and counselors and administrators to advocate for change. And I know that it can be a very hard thing to do, especially for the first step. But I think that once you take that first step, everything really just follows. And I think that's how I feel from personal experience. And I think that even in day-to-day discussions, let's say in like history class in school, voicing your opinion on certain events from history is, say, a minor step forward in ultimately reaching out to administrators and teachers to actually advocate for change throughout your school district.
Thank you very much. All right, I'm gonna just add on top of that, because this is a related question, and I'm going to throw this out to the whole panel if anyone has some response. How can we combat hate speech and misinformation surrounding race and ethnicity online and on social media? Sabrina, I'm going to have to start with you, because my sense is you have the best experience with, the best capabilities with social media these days.
Yeah, sorry, could you please repeat the question? You broke up a little bit for me on my end.
Sure. How can we combat hate speech and misinformation surrounding race and ethnicity online and on social media?
Right. I think social media, first of all, it's a very powerful tool, but it's a tool that can also be misused, and a platform in which there can be fake news, etc. So in terms of combating hate on social media, I think that it's important to first engage in conversations like in comment sections where you see something, for example, microaggression that stands out to you. Don't be afraid to reply and have an intellectual and educated discussion on what is wrong about the behavior. And it's really criticism that should be taken. It doesn't have to be violent, but I think that especially in the world we are in right now, there needs to be more educated conversations like this in order to combat hate. I think that I know social media can be a very exposing platform, but I think that exposure is something that we really need in order to bring to light this situation that we're in.
All right, thank you very much. We are running towards our time limit here, so there have been a few more questions that have popped up, but I do and I do apologize, we're not going to be able to get to them in this particular event, but I do encourage you to email us or reach out to our office. All the information, of course, has been listed in the chat. Also, and there it is on your screen. Yes, there will be a video available once we have it downloaded. We will be putting it up on YouTube. You can also find it on Facebook, on Senator John Brooks's Facebook page. And we have also posted the email contacts of all of our panelists for tonight. If you have any individual outreach you'd like to discuss with them, that is, of course, that is also in the chat. Again, I would just like to thank everybody here for just really some amazing perspectives and points of view. And right now I'm going to turn the microphone, so to speak, back over to Senator John Brooks.
Thank you, Joe, and thank you to all of the panelists for your contribution tonight and the service you give to the community. Thank you to all of our guests. You know, as Joe said, Officer Joy's son kind of stole the rally a little bit, not just with his singing and the Pledge of Allegiance, but at one point he interrupted his dad to make some points about the accomplishments of his community. And I think that's an important point that we need to remember. In these times when people are filled with the vial of hatred, make sure you remember to take pride in yourself, pride in your community, and appreciate people. You know, if we take time to examine people and appreciate something they do or they bring to the table, we're not going to be able to hate them anymore. So let's not hate, let's appreciate, because everybody brings something of great value to this world. You know, the media stations that broadcast this hate ongoingly, turn them off. And when enough people turn them off, their sponsors will turn them off. So I appreciate everything everybody brought to the table today. For all of us that come from all different parts of the world, we appreciate what you bring to this great country of ours. And I do apologize again in the beginning because I did forget that some people came here in chains. And we have an obligation to them not to forget that. So again, to all of our speakers, thank you very much. We still have a road to go down with hatred across the nation. But to me, hatred comes from ignorance, not understanding people. And, you know, like Officer Joy's son did, take pride in what you bring to this country and what you've accomplished in this country, because all those stars on the flag represent people that came from all parts of the world to be part of this melting pot that really provides much better opportunities than most any place else in the world. So I thank you all very much, and I thank my staff for once again all that they put into these programs. And they do it because they believe in what they're doing, and they take great pride in what they do. So I thank them all very, very much. Thank you all, and may you all be safe. Thank you. Lucia or Melanie, somebody want to take it?
Yes, thank you so much, Senator Brooks. And again, we appreciate all our panelists, our attendees, and of course, as always, our community group that help make these webinars possible. We thank you for taking some time out of your day to be a part of this discussion. We hope you have a blessed night. Take care.
Good night, everyone. Thank you. God bless.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone. Thank you.